Greetings, shinobi of the digital realm. This is Six Path Weeb, transmitting from the intersection of high-concept storytelling and anime theory. Welcome to the channel where alternate timelines, emotional depth, and character reimaginings come alive. Today's fanfic scenario. What if Minato's words deeply hurt Naruko? We're initiating a deep dive analysis into how a single moment of emotional impact could fracture destiny, alter identity, and reshape the core of the Naruto universe. Disclaimer. The content on this channel is created for entertainment and discussion purposes only. I do not own any of the anime footage used in these videos. All rights and credits belong to their original creators and copyright holders. Let the psychological unraveling begin. Let's start. It's just not fair, thought 7-year-old Naruko Uzumaki Namikaze, her small frame curled by her bedroom window as she gazed out at the training grounds. Below, her family trained and laughed together under the warm sunlight. The tall man with vivid blue eyes and spiky blonde hair wore a standard Konoha shinobi uniform beneath a flowing white hari. Adorned with flame patterns and the kanji for 4th Hokage down the back, he stood proud and confident. He was her father, the 4th Hokage, Minato Namikaze. Beside him stood a striking woman with long crimson hair and violet eyes, wearing a light green dress over a sleeveless blouse. She was Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze, Naruko's mother. Their daughter and Naruko's twin sister, Mito Uzumaki Namikaze, bore a strong resemblance to their mother, though she wore a deep blue dress and a bright smile. Joining the family were their cheerful godparents, Tsunade and Jiraiya, who seemed to be enjoying the moment under the pretense of training. Naruko pressed her cheek against the glass, her heart heavy. She couldn't understand what she had done wrong. She woke up early every day, cleaned the kitchen without being asked, took thoughtful walks to the Hokage monument to watch the sunrise, helped Mito with her reading, and always greeted her parents and waved to the villagers, even when they looked at her with puzzled eyes. She had even checked the mirror for anything unusual. But aside from her pale complexion and blonde hair streaked with silver, she looked like any healthy 5-year-old. Her green eyes sparkled with curiosity, and her body was well formed. Yet, something always felt off. She remembered the time she nervously asked a lavender-eyed girl in the park if she looked strange. The girl fainted. That reaction was still a mystery. Naruko had secretly begun teaching herself from the family's private library. She had already advanced in Fuinjutsu, the intricate art of sealing, further than most her age. Even Mito hadn't reached that level. Still, the one thing she struggled with was her chakra. While her sister had unlocked hers at age 4, Naruko found hers difficult to access. Whenever she tried, it felt unbalanced, like it was there but hesitant to respond. One day, she asked Shibiabarame, the father of a friend, for his opinion. He told her, in his usual calm tone, "Your chakra is simply not fully matured yet. But with effort, you'll awaken it. It may take longer, but it is not impossible." His words struck a chord with her. She looked up to him, one of the few adults who spoke to her with respect. After 2 weeks of silent meditation, she finally drew out her chakra. It had a unique hue, green, but not the soft green of nature, more like the eerie shimmer of something unknown. It felt like tiny footprints danced across her skin, oddly tingly, even mysterious. After awakening it, she noticed changes in animals she came near. A rabbit turned a strange color and seemed to follow her with unnatural obedience. Insects, especially spiders, were oddly attracted to her presence. Though odd, Naruko found it fascinating. Fine then, she whispered to herself that night, determined. If no one helps me, I'll just grow stronger on my own. The next day, Naruko wandered peacefully toward the Hokage monument. Her thoughts swirled as she remembered the advice of Hiruzen Sarutobi, the 3rd Hokage. To become great, you must have a goal, and a role model. She smiled faintly. Over time, she had looked up to those who acknowledged her, Shibiabarame, Uchiha Itachi, Yugao Uzuki, even the Kazekage of the Sand Village. Because of the strong alliance between Konoha and Suna, the two villages often exchanged visits, allowing Naruko to catch glimpses of leaders and shinobi from distant lands. As she walked with her hands in her pockets, she noticed a dusty old book lying by the stone head of the 3rd Hokage. Curious, she picked it up and brushed it off. The title read, "The Bingo Book." Tilting her head, she flipped through the pages and was instantly captivated. It was a record of highly skilled shinobi, some wanted for crimes, others simply remarkable in talent. Her eyes lit up as she spotted her parents' entries. But one entry, in particular, made her stop. S-Class Shinobi, Sasori of the Red Sands. Affiliation, formerly Sunagakur. Specialization: Puppeteer. Abilities: known to manipulate multiple puppets simultaneously, with unmatched skill. He is rumored to have transformed his own body into a puppet, enhancing his capabilities beyond human limits. Warning: do not attempt confrontation. Naruko's eyes sparkled with intrigue. Puppeteer, she whispered. It was unlike anything she'd considered before. She had always loved delicate craftsmanship and detail, puppetry combined both with chakra. Forgetting her sunrise tradition, she hurried to the Konoha library, her haven of discovery. Since she couldn't reach the upper shelves at home, the library had become her sanctuary. She arrived 30 minutes before opening and sat on the steps, rereading the entry about Sasori, particularly drawn to the phrase human puppets. It wasn't frightening to her, just puzzling. She recalled her earlier experiments, when her chakra changed the appearance and behavior of small animals. Soon the door opened, and a familiar voice greeted her. "Good morning, Naruko-chan," said Sami Yamanaka, the elderly librarian and former war veteran. "Good morning, Sami-san." Naruko chirped with a respectful bow. "You're here early today," he noted with a warm chuckle. "I just wanted to start learning sooner," she admitted. "Well then," he grinned, "next time you can help me open up. Deal?" Naruko beamed. "Really?" "Of course. For now, how about helping me dust the books?" "Definitely," she said enthusiastically, rushing to grab the dusters. As she cleaned, she asked, "Sami-san, what do you know about puppeteering?" "Ah, puppeteering," he said thoughtfully. "It's a refined shinobi art, mostly seen in the Sand Village. Shinobi there use chakra strings to manipulate finely crafted puppets in combat. It's a highly technical skill that requires patience and precision." Naruko's mind spun with ideas. Wooden puppets. Chakra strings. Could there be more to it? When her section of the library was clean, she eagerly ran over to Sami, who smiled knowingly and pointed her toward the S section. "Knock yourself out," he said with a wink. Naruko bowed with gratitude. "Thank you, Sami-san." As she dove into a world of scrolls and tomes, one thing was certain: a new path had opened before her, one of creativity, strategy, and mastery. And she was more than ready to take her first step. 30 minutes later. Naruko soon discovered that Konoha's understanding of puppetry was surprisingly limited. How can something so fascinating have such scarce information? She thought with a small frown. Her eyes drifted to Sasori's entry in the bingo book, determination shining in them. "I'll change that. I'll become the greatest puppet master the world has ever seen. I'll show the Namikaze family that I'm more than worthy of recognition." With that, she sprinted out the door, waving to the kindly old librarian, who gave her a knowing smile. Naruko Uzumaki Namikaze raced back home with excitement. Upon arriving, she headed straight for her father's private library. Fortunately, the Hokage, her father Minato, had already left for work. She began scouring the shelves for any material on puppetry, puppet masters, or chakra threads. Surprisingly, she found more information on chakra strings at home than at the public library, though it still wasn't enough. The scrolls said she had to emit chakra from the tenketsu in her fingers, but none explained how. Naturally, Naruko reasoned that to release chakra from specific points, she would need to develop exceptional chakra control. After some searching, she found a comprehensive scroll covering both basic and advanced chakra control exercises. Holding it closed like a treasure, she rushed to her room to begin training. Over the following month, Naruko discovered that her chakra reserves were exceptionally dense. Because of that, she had to begin with surface walking, on trees and walls, before she could even attempt simpler exercises like leaf balancing or leaf spinning. She barely left her room, only emerging once or twice a day to grab food and collect handfuls of leaves for practice. The only people who seemed to notice her change in routine were her close friend Shino Aburame, a few of her parents' friends, and her younger sister, Mito. Mito Uzumaki Namikaze adored her older sister. In fact, she had a bit of a childhood admiration that could be mistaken for a crush, not that she ever admitted it aloud. Her face turned a vivid shade of pink whenever Naruko was nearby. Mito was slightly shorter, with her mother Kushina's vibrant red hair, and had a personality opposite to Naruko's. Where Naruko was quiet and introspective, Mito was energetic, social, and playful. But despite their differences, Mito deeply admired her older sister. During thunderstorms, she would sneak into Naruko's room, curling up beside her for comfort while Naruko whispered words of reassurance. If she struggled with reading, Naruko was her first choice for help before even approaching their father. So when Naruko began withdrawing from her usual routine, Mito grew concerned. Her worries eased a little when she found Naruko poring over a large scroll. When asked, Naruko simply answered, "Chakra control." Sighing with admiration, Mito plopped down on Naruko's bed and watched her older sister walk across the ceiling, shirtless, leaves spinning around her, all while reading a book on woodworking and construction. Ne-chan. Do you think I can do that? Mito asked eagerly. If you're patient, yes, Mito-chan, Naruko responded calmly. But I've tried, Naruko-ne-chan. Ko-chan said I have too much chakra, and that means I'll need to do so many control exercises. It's hard. Mito pouted. You can do it, Mito-chan. I believe in you, Naruko said with a gentle smile. Mito's face lit up like her hair. Thanks, Ne-chan. No problem, Naruko said, continuing her upside-down training. Ne-chan, Mito mumbled, twiddling her fingers shyly. What do you think I should wear for the Kyuubi festival tonight? I mean, are you going? Naruko chuckled lightly. Of course I'm going. It's our birthday. Okay. Mito smiled shyly. Later that day, Mito watched her older sister with admiration as she continued her training in silence. But their parents soon called Mito to get ready for the festival. She gave Naruko one last look before sighing and heading to her room. See you later, Ne-chan. Once alone, Naruko stretched as the leaves around her finally slowed their spin. Sitting at her desk, she marked off the chakra exercises she had completed. Feeling accomplished, she focused chakra into her index finger. A delicate green thread emerged and stretched to the pillow across the room. She gave it a gentle tug and smiled, ducking instinctively as the pillow sailed toward her. Interesting, she mused. Time to start designing my first puppet. She giggled to herself, sounding more like an excited child than anything sinister. The festival was vibrant with joy. The food was delightful, the games exciting, and the people cheerful, well, most of them. Among the few who felt a tinge of sadness were Mito and Hinata Hyuga. Mito missed her sister's presence. Hinata, on the other hand, had secretly hoped to catch another glimpse of the girl who'd captured her curiosity. Meanwhile, Minato Namikaze, Naruko's father, was preoccupied with preparing part 2 of his daughter's birthday celebration. In doing so, he had unintentionally forgotten that he had 2 daughters, not just one. Later that evening, guests began arriving at the Namikaze residence for the celebration. The family, minus Naruko, gathered at the table. Minato stood and welcomed the guests warmly. Just then, Naruko entered the room, dressed in a dark green shirt, black shorts, and sandals. She noticed, somewhat disheartened, that most guests were surrounding Mito and their parents. Quietly, she walked to a corner and sat down with her sketchbook, continuing her puppet designs. Yo, Naruko. Mito called, come on. Let's blow out the candles together. Both parents glanced at one another, realizing with guilt that they hadn't prepared a gift for Naruko. They silently vowed to make it up to her. Naruko joined Mito at the cake. After the candles were blown out, Minato addressed the crowd. Everyone, I'd like to make a special announcement. As of today, I officially name Mito Uzumaki Namikaze as the heir to our clan. The room fell silent. Most guests turned toward Naruko with sympathetic expressions. It was common knowledge that she was the elder of the two. Naruko's world seemed to pause. They chose her. Over me? She bowed respectfully to her parents and quietly exited the room. Back at the party, many sighed in relief that Naruko hadn't caused a scene. Her parents, however, were filled with regret. Mito felt her heart crack just a little. Naruko, walking calmly, arrived at Training Ground 44. There, her emotions swirled like a storm, and she vented her frustration through intense chakra control practice. Green strings emerged from her fingers, arms, and shoulders, flowing like silk. She trained until midnight, practicing in silence. Finally, when she was calm, she sat down beneath the moonlight. For the first time in years, she cried softly. After some time, she wiped her tears, renewed her focus, and emitted a single thread of chakra. It wrapped around a tree trunk. Channeling her energy, the thread pulsed until the tree weakened and gently toppled over. I'll prove myself, she thought. I'll show them my worth. Removing her shirt, she activated multiple chakra strings from her hands, back, chest, and shoulders, and began carving the fallen tree into her first puppet design. She moved with grace, her actions deliberate and focused, like a spider weaving its web. Unbeknownst to her, Shibuya stood nearby, observing her quietly. He nodded in approval before disappearing into the shadows with a swift movement. Good luck, Naruko, he thought. Naruko walked calmly toward Training Ground 44, seeking a quiet space to channel her frustrations. As she reached the clearing, a silent storm of emotion swirled within her. With focused determination, she extended chakra threads from various chakra points, her hands, back, legs, and neck, allowing them to flow with precision and discipline. She directed these threads to carefully dismantle obstacles in her path, trees, vines, or anything disrupting her concentration. A powerful yell escaped her as she released the weight on her chest, her chakra threads dancing like glowing strands through the night air. It was near midnight when her mind finally settled. Though her body should have felt weary, she sat beneath the moonlight without a trace of fatigue. It was in that moment, beneath the quiet sky, that Naruko allowed herself a rare expression of vulnerability. Silent tears fell, years of solitude weighing on her spirit as she quietly wept for the first time since her parents had overlooked her birthday 4 years prior. After an hour, she wiped her cheeks, took a deep breath, and looked up at the moon with renewed resolve. From her finger, a slim, glowing green chakra thread extended and wrapped around a nearby tree trunk. Channeling her chakra, she watched as the wood softened just enough to be reshaped. With a swift flick of her wrist, the tree leaned and fell neatly into the clearing. "I'll show them," she thought with quiet determination. "I'll show them that I have value, that I'm capable." With that, she removed her shirt, carefully, so as not to damage it, and summoned chakra threads from all her accessible chakra points, including her back, chest, and sides. She began refining the fallen tree's structure, sculpting it with precision and care, steadily working on what would become her first handmade puppet. If someone had watched from afar, they might have compared her movements to a spider weaving its intricate web. A few yards away, Shibuya observed silently, noting her technique with quiet approval. With a small nod, he disappeared using a shunshine technique, offering one final thought as he vanished: "Good luck, Naruko." The following day, the villagers of Kanahagakure no Sato were met with an unexpected sight. At midday, Naruko Uzumaki Namikaze calmly strolled down the path leading to her home, guiding several wooden puppet components suspended above her via gentle chakra threads glowing faintly green. The sight might not have surprised them much. After all, ninja were known to walk on walls, manipulate the elements, and perform feats of wonder. Yet what caught their attention was that this display came from an 8-year-old girl who looked as if she had just returned from a rigorous training session in harsh weather. Despite her disheveled appearance, many villagers offered kind smiles and waves. Naruko, composed and quiet, responded with small respectful nods, keeping her emotions neatly tucked away. Internally, however, her thoughts buzzed with innovation and planning. The jaw mechanism should unhinge smoothly and release precise senbone needles. The poisons can be categorized: paralytic, mildly incapacitating, and discomfort-inducing. I can craft the joints with materials from Higurashi-san's weapon shop. I have everything mapped out. Upon reaching her home, she paused, considering whether to use the front door or enter through her bedroom window. Choosing the latter, she reminded herself that once she became a certified ninja, she'd invest in a more suitable residence, one with better access and more space for her creations. Due to the high-level ceiling protections on the house, created by her parents, both experts in Fuinjutsu far beyond even the legendary Jiraiya, scaling the walls with chakra was not an option. Instead, she extended 2 chakra threads, gently opening her window before carefully lifting the puppet parts inside. With deliberate finesse, she used the threads like extra limbs, pulling herself into her room with minimal sound. The entire process took less than 3 minutes. So I was right. I can use chakra threads as extended, prehensile limbs, Naruko noted with interest. Just as she passed through her window, a sudden pressure wrapped around her legs. Her younger sister, Mito, red-faced and tearful, clung to her tightly. "I'm sorry, One-san," Mito sobbed, her words stumbling from her lips. "Why, you can have the title. I didn't mean it, really. Please don't be upset." Naruko hesitated, unsure how to respond. Comforting others wasn't something she'd ever really practiced. After a brief pause, she gently patted Mito's head. "I'm not upset with you, Mito," she said softly. "Please don't cry anymore." As if those words flipped a switch, Mito's tears stopped. Instead, she climbed onto Naruko's back and dozed off peacefully. Naruko briefly considered using chakra threads to move her sister to bed, but quickly decided against it. Her puppet materials might still carry residual chakra energy, and she didn't want to risk any effects. Instead, she gently carried her sister, tucked her in with care, and gave her another awkward, affectionate pat before heading to the bathroom for a much-needed shower. Later that day, Naruko stood in the market district, her green utility shorts packed with scrolls containing her carefully saved earnings. Inside one of the scrolls was the allowance she had diligently saved since age 5. Being the Hokage's daughter had its advantages, and she had made sure to plan ahead. She entered Higurashi's ninja weapon store, where a bell chimed above her. "Welcome, Namikaze-sama. How can I help you today?" called Shurupuu Higurashi, a tall, broad-shouldered man with dark hair and an enthusiastic voice. "No need for titles, Higurashi-san. I'm here to purchase a few supplies," Naruko replied politely, handing him a neatly written list. "Also, I'm interested in renting your workshop and forge, for an indefinite period, if possible." 5,000 ryo per week, he answered after glancing at the list. "If I may ask, Naruko-kun, are you preparing for something serious?" "In a way, yes," she answered with a small, calm smile. Seeing his concerned expression, she quickly added, "Nothing to worry about, just a personal project." "Well, I do have everything on this list," he said, nodding. "Do you want the materials delivered to your home?" "No need. I'll be working here in the workshop, if that's all right. As it happens, most of your materials, particularly the tools and weapons, are already in the workshop. The clothing and other supplies are stored here. I'll bring those down for you shortly. When do you plan to begin?" "I'd like to start immediately," Naruko replied. Then, without hesitation, she pulled out a scroll and unsealed a considerable amount of money onto the counter, enough to make it creak under the weight. Somewhere behind the shelves, there was a soft thump. They guessed Higurashi's daughter might have fainted at the sight. "Will this cover the costs?" Naruko asked politely. The man could only nod, utterly stunned. "Your workshop, is it ready?" "Why yes, right this way," he stammered, locking the front of his store and guiding her to a hallway with 2 paths. They descended the stairs into a fully equipped forge and crafting space. "Just out of curiosity, do you know how to use a forge?" "I do," she replied with a confident nod. "Thank you, Higurashi-san. Please bring the materials when you're able, I'll be here for quite some time." "Understood. A long time, you said?" "Yes," Naruko chuckled lightly. "The payment includes the first year in advance. Feel free to count it later. Perhaps in the future, we can work together on something bigger, something that benefits us both."
I look forward to it," the blacksmith replied, still overwhelmed but clearly impressed.
As he stepped away to retrieve her items, Naruko rolled up her sleeves and looked around the workshop. Her journey was just beginning, and she was ready. Apparently, what Naruko meant by a while had extended into nearly 5 months. She had rarely left her workshop during this period, only stepping out to visit her sister at the Hokage's residence, who, with admirable dedication, had thrown herself into her training with the firm resolve of wanting to make her One-E-san proud. Naruko also made occasional appearances at her friend's clan compound so as not to draw attention to her long absences from the mansion. One such visit included a meeting with Shibi Aburame, who, in his quiet and observant manner, handed Naruko a scroll detailing various spiders catalogued by the Aburame clan along with an analysis of their natural defenses. Though his eyes remained hidden behind opaque glasses, Naruko could sense a depth of understanding in his subtle demeanor. Naruko also maintained a strict weekly routine that included training at Ground 44, a forest she noticed had more resilient trees compared to other areas in the village. There, she collected materials for her puppet crafting, methodically carving intricate pieces out of wood. She began her days before dawn, running laps around Konoha. During these early jogs, she often encountered a spirited figure in a vibrant green tracksuit who would enthusiastically shout about the springtime of youth. And other similarly passionate declarations. Naruko, slightly perplexed by the display, couldn't help but remember those encounters vividly. In addition to refining her puppetry skills, Naruko committed herself to mastering a unique combat style that would complement her talents. Sami Yamanaka had guided her to a lesser-known section of Konoha's library, where she discovered a scroll titled The Dizzy Spell Stinging Fists. Despite its peculiar name, the technique was surprisingly effective. It emphasized swift, unpredictable movements intended to disorient opponents. While not reliant on brute strength, its effectiveness lay in speed and precision. Practitioners would move so rapidly that their limbs appeared blurred, inducing a near-hypnotic effect that allowed for quick strikes to pressure points, the use of concealed senbon, or a tactical retreat to deploy puppets. The style bore similarities to genjutsu in its disorienting nature, but it was purely physical. It had one key limitation: advanced visual abilities such as the Sharingan or Byakugan could potentially disrupt its effectiveness. Naruko had trained rigorously for the past 3 months, 5 hours daily, and had developed a competent level of proficiency, though true mastery would take years. At this point, Naruko had successfully completed 3 puppets, each designed with purpose and ingenuity. The first puppet, named Kumo, was inspired by a spider-like design. The lower half resembled a spider, while the upper portion resembled a human figure. Its spider body was painted with streaks of black, brown, and forest green. The human torso featured green eyes and wore a sleeveless black top beneath a dark green flak jacket. The puppet's core was filled with ninja wire and shuriken, each treated with agents designed to temporarily paralyze or impair an opponent. The arms housed seals storing a wide array of tools, senbon, kunai, tags, and more, all strategically embedded for quick access. The puppet's mouth, subtly segmented, contained an extendable fang that delivered a specialized mixture to prevent wounds from healing swiftly. Seals embedded in its jacket held stored lightning nature chakra, allowing it to deliver a non-lethal shock to anyone who attempted to grab it. Naruko even included a hidden compartment within the puppet, enabling her to control it from within, an impressive feat, given how natural the exterior appeared. The entire construct was reinforced with durability seals, making it resilient even in harsh environments. It also carried a concealed katana for emergencies. Naruko had already decided Kumo would be her primary puppet in most situations. The second puppet, named Black Hole, or Ko for short, was cleverly designed to appear harmless. Modeled to resemble a cheerful 5-year-old child, it had green eyes, a faint blush on the cheeks, and an overall appearance that radiated innocence. Dressed in a purple kimono with black floral accents, Ko's design encouraged opponents to lower their guard. When activated, the puppet would fidget adorably before initiating its primary technique, eye contact followed by a subtle hypnotic effect. A seal in its mouth would then activate. This specialized seal, derived from Naruko's sealing expertise, was a modified storage seal that bypassed standard limitations. It would extend wires to safely restrain a target, drawing them into the puppet's mouth and placing them into a non-harmful state of suspension. Ko was not built for speed or combat, but instead served an important role in missions requiring stealth, capture, or distraction. The third puppet, called Mira or Wraps, was Naruko's most elaborate creation. She began by sculpting a human-like skeleton from resilient wood, reinforced with high durability seals. It was painted and wrapped entirely in bandages, giving it a mystifying appearance. The puppet's glowing green eyes and ever-smiling expression gave it a haunting, otherworldly aura. Its primary weapon was a custom-made obsidian scythe, specially commissioned from a distant land. Only Naruko could wield the scythe safely. Anyone else attempting to do so would immediately lose consciousness due to a unique chakra-synchronized seal embedded within it. Mira had been inspired by legends of mythic beings wrapped in cloth, said to wander silently through the night. In performance, Naruko added a low, jackal-like chuckle to Mira's activation, which served to unsettle her opponents. Though Naruko considered Kumo her first choice in combat, Mira remained a formidable backup. Naruko herself had also adopted a new appearance to suit her evolving style. She wore black Onbu-inspired trousers with multiple compartments for scrolls and tools, a long-sleeved black shirt with a green stripe running down its center, and a dark green hoodie equipped with hidden pockets. Her gloves were fingerless to allow unimpeded control of chakra strings, and her sandals were suited for silent movement. A half mask hung loosely around her neck, and a pair of dark-tinted glasses completed the look. Naruko liked her new appearance, if he not as frequent blushes and feigning spells whenever she waved were any indication. The change had made an impression. She had also made a trip to a discreet tattoo artist to have unique chakra-based seals inked along her arms, alongside a spider-themed tattoo on her left wrist that served as a storage seal for Kumo. To her, the tattoos weren't just decoration, they were tools and symbols of her craft. In the final month, she had committed herself to thorough training with all 3 puppets, both individually and in unison. Her coordination improved dramatically. Now she could manipulate each puppet simultaneously using just 3 fingers per hand. She even carried a sketchpad tucked inside her hoodie, ready to jot down sudden sparks of inspiration. Despite being a resident of the Hokage's mansion, Naruko had barely spent more than an hour there during the past few months. And now, in just 2 days, she would officially begin her time at the academy. She took a deep breath. This was going to be an interesting journey. She felt terrible. It was as though her heart had shrunk under the weight of sorrow. She hadn't seen her daughter in 5 months. After Naruko's birthday celebration 5 months ago, there hadn't been a single opportunity to even apologize, for her absence, for her mistakes, for being a mother who had unintentionally caused pain. For months, Kushina Uzumaki had wept in Naruko's room, whispering quiet pleas for forgiveness to anyone who might listen. She had made it her personal mission to clean Naruko's already spotless room every single day, just to feel she was doing something, anything, for her child. Now, she stood quietly in the kitchen, lost in thought as the blue sky outside sparkled cheerfully, so unlike the weight she carried in her chest. What had been Naruko's favorite color again? Why couldn't the sky reflect her feelings just this once? With a deep breath, Kushina resumed washing dishes from yet another lunch Naruko hadn't attended. Was she eating well? Was she safe? Was she sleeping in warmth and comfort? Her only comfort was that Naruko hadn't completely cut ties. Every afternoon, Kushina turned to her other daughter, Mito, to ask about Naruko's well-being. She was healthy, Mito said, and that was the thread of peace Kushina clung to each night. She was drawn from her thoughts by two arms encircling her waist and a familiar presence resting his head on her shoulder. It was Minato. "We truly made mistakes, didn't we, Minato-koi?" she whispered softly. "Yes, we did," Minato admitted, his tone gentle. "But I believe we can make things right." "You've said that yesterday. And the day before. And even before that," Kushina murmured. "I know," he replied, pressing a light kiss on her neck. "But I have a feeling this time. Trust me, Haim." His affection made her sigh, and she turned toward him, placing a soft kiss on his lips. The kiss deepened naturally, their embrace growing warmer until... Ahem. Minato jumped back in surprise, knocking into the ceiling. The couple looked toward the voice and were met with the sight of a composed but visibly uncomfortable Naruko standing at the kitchen entrance. Her black framed glasses glinted as she looked away, hands tucked stiffly into her pockets. "Na Naruko-chan," Kushina whispered, hardly believing her eyes. Her heart raced with a cautious hope. Maybe Minato's instinct had been right. "Atu-sama, Okaa-sama," Naruko said politely, bowing respectfully, though the formality in her voice pierced their hearts. "I have a request to make." There was a long pause. Minato held his breath, and Kushina struggled not to rush forward and embrace her. She was their daughter. She didn't need to ask for permission to speak her heart. Taking initiative, Minato gracefully dropped from the ceiling and knelt before her, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. He noticed a small twitch in her left hand but said nothing. Instead, he offered a small, sincere smile. "You don't need permission to speak, Naruko-chan. Please, go ahead." So that's their plan. Naruko thought silently. But 4 years of distance isn't something that disappears overnight. "Yes," she said clearly, "I would like you both to fill in and sign the guardian section of my academy registration form." She could have asked someone else, Shibi-sensei, perhaps, but most people already knew she was the daughter of the fourth Hokage. Without their official signatures, she couldn't proceed. "Of course we'll sign it," Minato replied warmly. "Just leave it in my office later today, alright?" "Hi, Atu-sama. Thank you." "No need to thank us, Naruko-chan." Silence filled the room once more, heavy and stifling. Minato eventually stood and excused himself, saying he needed to return to work. "Naruko-chan." Kushina began. "Okaa-sama?" She pressed her hands to her mouth, trying to suppress the wave of emotion building inside her. She took a tentative step forward. "I have somewhere to be. I'll see you later," Naruko said quickly, bowing once more before briskly exiting the kitchen. Kushina was left standing there, her tears finally spilling freely as she cradled her face in her hands. Moments later, Mito entered the room silently. She had seen the whole exchange. Without a word, she wrapped her arms around her mother in a comforting embrace, gently rubbing her back. "Don't worry, Okaa-chan," Mito whispered with quiet optimism. "Everything will go back to normal. You'll see." And for the first time that day, Kushina felt like the tears might finally slow. The only reason Naruko had ever considered enrolling in the academy was her ambition to become a ninja. However, upon observing her future classmates, she made a quick, albeit slightly impulsive, decision: "I'm graduating early." The academy curriculum was structured across 4 years. Typically, students entered at the age of 8 and graduated by 12. The first year focused on foundational knowledge across all ninja arts, ninjutsu, taijutsu, genjutsu, and fuinjutsu. The second year shifted towards the study of Konoha's history and that of its Hokage. In the third year, students expanded their awareness of other hidden villages while refining their practical ninja skills and mastering the 3 essential ninjutsu techniques necessary for graduation. The fourth and final year primarily served as a comprehensive review of all previously covered material. From her own self-assessment, Naruko recognized her struggles in genjutsu. Her aptitude in that area was minimal, so limited that she couldn't even perform or counteract an E-rank genjutsu. However, she had confidence in her transformation technique, which was solid, a fact she confirmed when Shibi Aburame tested her. Naruko had diligently studied Konoha's history and had also gained knowledge of the greater elemental nations, having come across relevant materials through traveling merchants and public libraries. She was, without question, leading in taijutsu and fuinjutsu within her class. She would modestly rate herself at a high chunin level in puppetry, an art her parents had yet to discover, and at a high jonin level in taijutsu. To improve beyond this point, she understood she would require actual mission experience and challenges against more skilled opponents. The gaps in her abilities were clear, but also fixable. Her father's library had informed her of the differences between elemental and non-elemental clones. She had attempted the Cage Bunshin no Jutsu, but due to her unusually dense chakra, the clones manifested in a bloated and unhealthy green form. Following that attempt, she acquired chakra paper and discovered her primary affinity was earth, with a secondary, weaker affinity to fire. When she tried using Doten Bunshin, her clones remained unrefined, maintaining their flawed green hue. Thus, she concluded she would have to innovate a cloning technique of her own. She created 11 of her imperfect Cage Bunshin and instructed them to persistently perform fire affinity exercises for 2 weeks without dispelling. Then, she infused fire-natured chakra into her chakra strings, shaping the energy into a rough human outline and gradually adding details. This process took approximately 20 minutes. She decided she would eventually need hand seals to perform the technique more efficiently. After a variety of tests using her clones, she determined that the Ram and Tiger seals were optimal. Ram accelerated chakra summoning, while Tiger strengthened her fire chakra manipulation. After a week, she no longer needed her strings. Just forming the hand seals while visualizing herself and the intended number of clones was enough. The only drawback was that a small amount of her chakra would quietly escape as harmless steam from her ears, thankfully silent, odorless, and entirely safe. She could now create up to 76 clones, all highly durable. To address her difficulty with genjutsu, she rigorously studied detection techniques, as she had little expectation of ever producing genjutsu effectively. When caught in an illusion, she would anchor herself to the ground with chakra strings and release a forceful burst of chakra to dispel it. This method, though effective, was painful due to the nature of her dense chakra and the unique way it exited her body. Over time, she hoped the pain would diminish. One useful side effect was that if her chakra made contact with the illusionist, it would temporarily interfere with the opponent's chakra control until she withdrew it or until it naturally dissipated 12 hours later. Sami Yamanaka had inadvertently experienced this firsthand and, despite the discomfort, had graciously commended her, saying, "You did well, Naruko-san." Her effective radius was about 15 feet. To remain sharp, Naruko constantly practiced her taijutsu and puppetry. She was determined to graduate in 9 months. Maintaining high marks at the academy was essential to secure an early graduation. Either her instructors would endorse her, or she would advocate for herself. Naruko ensured she scored above 97% on all assessments, consistently ranking at the top in both theoretical and practical evaluations. This brings us to the present. The academy students were gathered around the outdoor sparring mat. Cheers, murmurs, and indifferent chatter filled the air as pairs stepped onto the platform when their names were called by Sensei Iruka Umino. Most matches were unremarkable, except for one memorable bout between Choji Akimichi and Sasuke Uchiha. Choji initially wished to forfeit, fully aware of Sasuke's skill. However, Sasuke made the critical mistake of insulting Choji's appearance. The moment was met with a collective gasp from the crowd. A valuable lesson was learned: never make fun of someone's appearance, especially Choji's. The match escalated, and Iruka, along with Shikamaru Nara, had to intervene. While Sasuke did not emerge victorious, it was certainly an experience he would not soon forget. Finally, the last match of the day was announced: Naruko Uzumaki Namikaze vs Emryo. Looks like we're not finishing early today. Poor guy, Naruko thought to herself with a quiet chuckle. The crowd went silent. All eyes were fixed on the match with intense curiosity. Naruko was known as the top-performing student, surpassing even Sasuke in both written and physical exams. Her taijutsu style remained a mystery. Even Iruka had no recollection of how her previous matches had ended. Some Onbu had even turned it into a game to analyze her technique. Only a few Hyuga members managed to discern her style, and even they struggled to describe it. Naruko entered the ring calmly, her face impassive as she studied her grinning opponent. Emryo was dressed in a light blue shirt bearing a white shuriken emblem, white shorts, and blue sandals. With pale skin and near white blonde hair, he had no known surname, likely indicating that he was an orphan. He carried himself with exaggerated confidence. "Get ready to lose, Namikaze." Emryo grinned. "I'm going to be the next Hokage." And why exactly should that concern me? Naruko responded in a flat tone. Because you're standing in my way, he retorted. Naruko inclined her head slightly. Good luck to you then, Amryo-san, she said politely, assuming her stance for the dizzy spell stinging fist. You'll most definitely need it. Amryo took the academy's standard taijutsu position. Iruka observed both students. Ready? He asked. They nodded. Begin. For several seconds, neither moved. They simply watched each other in perfect silence. Then, in an instant, Amryo rushed forward with a clenched fist, hoping for a swift victory. Naruko sidestepped smoothly, parrying his strike and gently pushing him back with a palm strike to his chest. Creating distance, Naruko waved her open palm in front of Amryo's face with such speed it produced afterimages. Her left arm was drawn back, prepared for a follow-up strike. The motion caused an optical illusion. Amryo believed he saw a spiraling, glowing green pattern in her palm. His vision swam, he felt unbalanced yet frozen in place. The audience, too, swayed slightly under the visual suggestion. Naruko gave the faintest of smirks. Seeing her technique take effect, she released her left arm and struck his side, sweeping his legs to gently guide him to the mat. Dizzy spell fist, first arm, she noted inwardly. In earlier weeks, some students had suspected she was using ninjutsu during spars. Those doubts faded after a particular incident involving Neji Hyuga. When he mocked his own cousin, Naruko's close friend, by saying she relied too much on her father's title as Hokage, Naruko challenged him to a sparring match. It was a formal setting, which allowed her to address the situation in a respectful and skillful manner. Neji, overly sure of himself, agreed to the match. Let's just say, the outcome spoke for itself. Flashback. The two young challengers stood several feet apart at Training Ground 4, a spacious location designed for open sparring while still allowing room for spectators. A significant portion of the village's ninja population had gathered, including the Hokage and his wife, many Jonin, a majority of the Chunin, and a handful of Jinan. All were eager to witness what the Hokage's eldest daughter could demonstrate against the Hyuga clan's renowned prodigy. You should consider withdrawing now, Namikaze-sama, Neji stated, his gaze briefly shifting toward the watching crowd. There's no need to embarrass yourself in front of your parents. Naruko Uzumaki Namikaze responded not with words, but with a composed glance toward the unofficial referee, an Anbu operative named Tora. Tora raised one hand, signaling the crowd into silence. Match, Naruko Uzumaki Namikaze vs Neji Hyuga. Are both participants ready? Upon receiving a nod from each, he swiftly brought his hand down in a chopping motion. Begin. Tora leapt back to give them space. I'll give you one last opportunity to forfeit, Neji offered, his voice carrying a confident tone. But Naruko's steady posture gave no indication of retreat. With a sigh of resignation, Neji nodded to himself. So be it. Activating his Byakugan, Neji lunged forward, chakra flowing to his fingertips in preparation for a precise strike aimed at Naruko's shoulders. Anticipating the danger of the gentle fist technique, Naruko nimbly ducked under the strike, all while calculating her opponent's range and sensory advantage. I can't mislead someone with near-complete vision, she mused internally while weaving past successive strikes, each delivered faster and more intensely as Neji grew agitated. Let's see how his reflexes compare to my speed. Seizing an opening, Naruko evaded another attack and swiftly retaliated, delivering 7 rapid punches to Neji's midsection followed by a well-aimed kick toward the back of his knees. Neji barely avoided the kick but wasn't so fortunate with the punches, which landed before he could fully register them. The Hyuga staggered slightly, momentarily disoriented, and placed a hand over the area that had absorbed the blows. He gazed at Naruko, who remained in a calm defensive stance, her expression unreadable. How did you move so fast? Neji questioned through gritted teeth. Naruko simply raised an eyebrow and shifted to a more assertive stance in response. Frustrated, Neji charged again. The audience held its breath as the Hyuga prodigy launched a flurry of targeted strikes, aiming for critical pressure points with renewed intensity. Naruko's graceful movements, however, seemed choreographed, her agility allowing her to dodge and counter with precise combinations. Evade a strike to the throat, counter with 4 punches to the left arm and a kick to the right knee. Dodge a strike aimed at the chest, reply with 4 sharp jabs to the torso and a sweep to the side. Step away from an attack aimed at her lower back, follow through with 4 focused strikes to the leg and another side kick. Observers watched in amazement as Neji's breathing grew heavier, his movement slower. In contrast, Naruko moved like the wind, quick, fluid, and relentless. Her strikes weren't wild but methodical, gradually overwhelming Neiji's defenses. Kicks, punches, even elbows and knees flowed seamlessly, wearing him down with efficiency. Eventually, Neji collapsed onto his back, clearly exhausted. Naruko stood tall, not even breaking a sweat, her gaze firm but not unkind. "Focus on your endurance," she murmured quietly to her opponent. "Try integrating kicks into your forms. Better luck next time." She turned and nodded toward Tora, who raised his hand. Winner, Naruko Uzumaki Namikaze. Later that week. After Neji had recovered, he found himself surrounded by curious peers and shinobi alike, all eager to learn how the Hyuga genius had been defeated. He offered them only a simple, respectful answer. "She's incredibly fast." Rumors quickly spread, attributing Naruko's performance to her extraordinary speed, so much so that her movements were said to entrance her opponents mid-battle. Present. Naruko had grown fond of the fighting style. It prioritized agility and finesse over raw power, requiring no chakra-enhanced strength or elaborate ninjutsu. It also paired seamlessly with her unique puppetry techniques. She raised her left hand and snapped her fingers. The crisp sound echoed through the clearing. Several Anbu, startled, lost their balance in the trees above, drawing quiet chuckles from the onlookers. Naruko didn't boast, she knew full well that Anbu were highly skilled, and their brief surprise was more about unfamiliarity with her speed than any actual shortcoming. Rolling her right shoulder with a faint wince, she reflected, "I need to refine my training regimen." The technique she was studying was incomplete, damaged scrolls had only preserved the upper body aspects, with no instructions for using the full body. Still, she was determined to expand it herself. Iruka, standing nearby and still processing what he'd seen, cleared his throat and spoke, "Winner, Naruko Uzumaki Namikaze." Naruko bowed to the now silent crowd and returned to the tree where she had originally been resting. Many students eyed her with admiration, awe visible in their expressions. Class dismissed. "Enjoy your weekend," Iruka announced, prompting the crowd to disperse into smaller groups. "Naruko ne-san. Naruko ne-san." A cheerful voice called out from behind her. Naruko smiled softly and turned around. "You were amazing in that match. You were like Whoosh, and then he was like Uck, and then you just stood there looking so cool." The younger girl flailed her arms excitedly, trying to act out the moves she had seen. "No, you're the one who's cool," Naruko said with a soft laugh, nudging her side affectionately. "So, Mito-chan, how's your training going?" "It's alright," Mito replied while waving at some familiar shopkeepers. "I still can't strengthen my blocks in our clan's taijutsu style," she admitted with a small pout. "Try more push-ups and squats," Naruko advised. "I already do those." Mito protested, returning the greeting of a few passing chunin. "Then double the reps," Naruko said, gently teasing. "Cut back on ramen, and drink plenty of milk." Mito shot her an incredulous look. "Seriously? Trust me. It works." Okay, I'll try." Naruko patted Mito's head, giving her a small, reassuring smile. "You'll get there in time, Mito." "Naruko ne-san," Mito exclaimed, red-faced from embarrassment, smoothing her hair self-consciously as several bystanders chuckled. Naruko's grin widened as she pulled Mito into a playful headlock and ruffled her hair, ignoring her half-hearted protests. From a distance, Minato Namikaze watched with quiet contentment. Despite her solitude and burdens, his daughter still knew how to laugh, how to be a child, even if only for a little while. Under the gentle glow of the moon, a lithe figure moved silently across the rooftops of Konoha, heading toward the village's northern gate. Naruko paused on the edge of a high building, her bright green eyes narrowing as she observed the two guards below. She carefully flicked two harmless senbone needles at their pressure points, watching calmly as they collapsed into a light, unconscious slumber. Landing softly on the ground, Naruko walked toward the gate, slightly surprised at how minimal the security was during this peaceful period. Although she wasn't a sensory-type shinobi, she could instinctively tell that no one else was watching her departure. A silvery beam of moonlight filtered through the trees, glinting off her golden hair and casting a serene glow on her features. Her previously playful expression faded into a more serious one as she glanced down at the resting guards. "How careless," she murmured softly. She formed a few quick hand seals, ram, tiger. Fire clone technique. In a small flare of flame, a clone appeared beside her. Naruko ensured the clone was well charged with her chakra, enough to function independently for at least 6 months. "You know the plan?" Naruko whispered to the clone. "Yes, ma'am." The clone chirped with enthusiasm, momentarily forgetting to keep a low profile. Naruko sighed, "Please, keep your voice down." She cleared her throat and continued in a firm but quiet tone. "Maintain your role at the academy. Study design concepts for puppet blueprints and sketch out new ideas. When sparring, only use the speed aspect of the dizzy spell fist, no need to display full strength. Let's hope our classmates forget my typical patterns." She paused briefly, then added, "Learn at least 3 earth-style techniques from Uncle Sarutobi to balance our fire-style abilities. If possible, try to acquire at least 1 basic technique for each elemental style. You have enough chakra to produce more clones, but do so wisely. And above all, do not arouse suspicion. I expect a detailed report when I return." "Understood?" "Crystal clear," the clone replied with a nod. "But, Naruko, where are you headed again?" Naruko grew quiet, eyes reflecting thoughtful determination. "From what I overheard during one of Jiraiya-Sama's rants to my father, it seems Sasori's intelligence network surpasses even his. Their loyalty is remarkable. While I don't want to replicate Sasori's exact path, establishing a network of trusted informants sounds useful and appealing." The clone nodded thoughtfully. "Iwa is out of the question for obvious reasons. Suna maintains close diplomatic ties with Konoha. Kumo's security has been reinforced due to past incidents. That leaves Kiri. Yes, it's undergoing internal conflict, but that chaos makes it easier to blend in. I'll begin there. Once I gain a foundation, I'll expand my reach, gathering knowledge and forming connections. When the time is right, I'll return a week before you disperse. The academy is uninspiring. I need something more challenging to make use of the next 9 months. Is there anything else?" "No, that covers it," the clone said with a respectful shake of the head. "Good," Naruko nodded. "Get back into the village and act as naturally as possible. I'll see you soon." With a final wave, she sprinted toward the deeper part of the forest. The clone remained for a moment, gazing in the direction Naruko had disappeared, grateful for the clarity of its shared memories. Though it was a curious thing, talking to what was essentially herself, it grounded her sense of purpose. This was not a dream. She was truly stepping into the wider world to make part of her vision real. An amusing fact remained: she was only 8 years old. An 8-legged creature moved swiftly, weaving through the trees as it crossed the hidden borders of Kirigakura no Sato. The mist grew denser with each step it took, blanketing the area in an eerie calm. Aside from the soft crunch of dry leaves underfoot, the forest was silent, until a sudden flicker of motion prompted the creature to swiftly unseal a kunai from its right arm and deflect an incoming one. It entered a clearing and waited patiently, its body poised, sensing the approach of others. Moments later, 2 figures leapt into the clearing. As they caught sight of the creature, both paused, taking several steps back to regain their composure. "What in the world?" the shorter of the 2 muttered, adjusting his goggles. His sharp teeth and blue hair made him stand out. Naruko, who had been watching from a hidden vantage point, estimated he wasn't much older than herself. Strapped across his back was Haramkare, one of the 7 swords of the mist. "What exactly are you?" "That's not a very polite question, stranger," the creature, known as Kumo, replied in a whispery, hissing tone that sent a chill through their spines. It was clearly enjoying the reaction. "Before we get into that, are you 2 by any chance aligned with the Kiri rebellion?" "That depends on what you're here for," the taller one answered sharply. He wore an eye patch and had a more confident air about him. "How do we know your intentions are genuine?" "You don't," Kumo responded with the same quiet hiss, though his posture remained non-threatening. "But I assure you, my intentions are sincere, at least toward the rebellion. You'll forgive me if I don't accept that at face value." The tall man formed hand seals and activated the hidden Byakugan beneath his eye patch. He scanned Kumo with a practiced eye. Beneath the illusion, he detected a young boy, no older than 12, with inky black hair and emerald, pupilless eyes who gave him a quick wink, signaling for silence. After a beat, the older man nodded. "He's not a threat." "What? How can you say that?" the younger one gasped, pointing at the hybrid being before them. "Just look at it." "In my day, Kujuro, youngsters listened to their seniors," the man said firmly. "I understand, ow. But still," Kujuro replied, his voice trailing off. "Let's escort him to Mei-sama," Ao decided. "Yes, sir." They began making their way toward the hidden rebel base, the quiet only interrupted when they found themselves encircled by over 40 ninja, the opposing faction loyal to the current Mizukage. "Well, what have we got here?" one of the enemy ninja sneered. "A couple of rebel sympathizers and their strange little companion. Bet the Mizukage would love a look at that sword, and the rest of you. Sounds like a reward's coming, Tomoe-san. Another added excitedly. Ao and Kujuro immediately readied themselves for combat. But they were clearly outmatched. Then came the odd, raspy laughter from Kumo. Oh? Do you really believe the numbers are on your side? There's 43 of us, and only 3 of you, freak. Their leader shouted. Not quite. Kumo unrolled a scroll and, in a puff of smoke, summoned a small girl. She appeared no older than 5, wearing a purple kimono with black floral patterns, her hair long and dark, eyes light green, and skin lightly sun-kissed. Her round cheeks held a faint blush as she shyly scuffed her foot on the ground. The crowd of enemy shinobi burst into laughter. Is this a joke? She's adorable, many laughed, while others exclaimed, so cute. Even Ao and Kujuro exchanged doubtful glances, clearly unsure of Kumo's strategy. Then the little girl looked up. A moment later, a soft glow emerged from a seal at the back of her throat. Without warning, dozens of wires burst out and ensnared 30 of the enemy ninja, pulling them swiftly toward her, vanishing into her mouth in mere seconds. The clearing fell into stunned silence. Before anyone could react, she repeated the action, calmly absorbing the rest of the attackers. Then she gave a delicate giggle and a small burp. Oops. Excuse me. Ao and Kujuro stood in awe, mouths agape. What? Kumo gently chuckled and resealed the puppet girl into a puff of smoke. Shall we proceed? Still dazed, the 2 ninjas simply nodded and continued toward the rebel stronghold. Sir, are they all right? Kujuro asked with a pale face. They're not harmed, Kumo responded calmly. They're simply held in stasis. I can release them later. If I choose. They're in no danger, unless I leave them too long. I see, Ao murmured, still processing the display. You mentioned you wish to help in this conflict? I do, Kumo replied. But I must speak with your leader before making a formal offer. They continued their journey, Kujuro twitching each time Kumo's limbs moved slightly. This boy could be a critical asset in this conflict, Ao thought. I hope Mei-sama sees that too. Meanwhile, back in Konoha. In the home of one of her earliest supporters, a clone of Naruko sat across from the 3rd Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, the professor of the shinobi world. How are you, Naruko-chan? The kind old man asked, pouring tea for her clone, who accepted the cup with a polite nod. I'm doing well, Sarutobi Oji-sama. Did you manage to discover what was harming your gardenias? Yes, he replied with a sigh. But catching the critter responsible is proving difficult, he chuckled. But enough about my garden. I've heard from your instructors that you're top of your class. Are you planning to graduate early? Would you like me to? She asked with a soft smile. That choice is yours, Naruko-chan. I'll support you no matter what you decide, the old Hokage answered warmly. Naruko's eyes shimmered slightly with emotion. She wiped them quickly with her sleeve. Thank you, Ji-sama. No need for thanks, dear one. Was there something else you wanted to discuss? Yes, she said, perking up. Since I've decided to graduate early, his eyes twinkled. I want to be prepared. Could you please teach me some earth release techniques? Your Jonin sensei will teach you jutsu after graduation, Hiruzen reminded gently. I know, Naruko said, trying her best to look adorably persuasive, but I'd like to learn some defensive techniques ahead of time. Hiruzen raised a brow. Why earth release, specifically? I'm well versed in offense, she said confidently. I have my taijutsu, puppets, and my fire clones, but not much in the way of defense. Wait. Fire clones? He blinked. Naruko chuckled. Oh. I never told you? I created them using my fire affinity when I couldn't master the basic clone techniques. May I see one? She nodded and quickly performed the hand signs. A burst of flame formed into a perfect replica beside her, smiling at the Hokage. Brilliant, Hiruzen exclaimed. You created an elemental clone, on your own. Naruko blushed. It wasn't a big deal. Oh, it is, he said, standing and retrieving a scroll from a nearby shelf. Here, this is the earth wall technique. Practice this and come back to me once you've mastered it. Naruko's clone accepted the scroll and began reading. Hiruzen sipped his tea thoughtfully. Would you be willing to share your fire clone technique with the village? Of course, Naruko replied. But it consumes a lot of chakra, like shadow clones. Understood. Then I'll have Minato add it to the village's classified scrolls. A quiet pause followed, until Naruko asked, G-sama, do you think I'm better suited for the front lines? That's not my decision to make, Hiruzen replied kindly. What kind of kunoichi do you want to be? I'm versatile, she said thoughtfully, but I'd like to specialize in infiltration and sabotage. Maybe some light information gathering too. Hiruzen's brow rose. You sound like you want to build your own intelligence network. Naruko grinned. Exactly. The old man laughed. Excellent. I'll recommend a suitable sensei for you once you graduate. Thank you, G-sama, she said, bowing before heading for the door. I'll see you soon. And with that, the clever kunoichi's clone stepped out into the sunlight, one step closer to shaping her path as a ninja. Over in Kirigakure, the trio finally arrived at the hidden headquarters of the rebel faction. The mist was unusually thick here, creating a blanket of fog that made it difficult to see even a few feet ahead. Naruko could barely make out the silhouettes of those walking just ahead of her. They eventually halted in front of a sturdy iron door that seemed to blend seamlessly into the environment. Ao stepped forward and knocked 3 times. A narrow viewing slit snapped open, and a vigilant eye peeked through. Who is it, Ao-sama? She's a potential ally, Ao replied with measured calm. I'm not convinced. But if you vouch for her, Commander, I'll trust your judgment, the guard responded. The slit shut, a resonant metallic sound echoed, and the heavy door creaked open to let Ao, Chojuro, and Naruko pass inside. Once they were in, the door closed firmly behind them. Their path led toward the command tent of the rebel leader. The atmosphere felt tense, not for Naruko, but for the rebels. One could hardly blame them. Following behind Ao and Chojuro was a peculiar companion, a large mechanical figure resembling a human spider hybrid. Though it waved politely, its appearance understandably unsettled onlookers. Upon reaching the command tent, Ao asked the odd figure to wait outside momentarily while he and the blue-haired youth entered. 2 minutes later, muffled sounds of discussion, or perhaps a small argument, came from within, followed by silence. 5 minutes after that, a flustered and red-cheeked Chojuro emerged and invited Naruko in. Though Mei Terumi had been informed about their unusual visitor, she still flinched slightly when the puppet-like figure entered. Naruko bowed respectfully, and Mei, recovering her composure, returned the gesture. Mei was striking in appearance. Her chestnut brown hair fell to her ankles, and she wore a deep purple outfit with a high slit, accompanied by fitted shorts. Her confidence was unmistakable. Taking a calming breath, Mei stood tall and introduced herself. My name is Mei Terumi, and I lead the rebel forces of Kirigakure. May I ask your name? You may call me Kumo, Mei-sama, Naruko replied with a gentle bow. I am here to offer my skills and support to your cause. Mei raised an eyebrow. Why are you helping us? What do you gain in return? Kumo gestured subtly toward the guards stationed in the corners of the tent. Understanding the message, Mei turned to her guards. Please step outside for a moment. Once the last guard exited, she returned her focus to Kumo. To be frank, Kumo began, I'm investing in the future of this village. I mean no offense, it's simply that this effort aligns with my broader aspirations. And what exactly are these aspirations? Ao asked curiously. If you weren't already aware, I am not what I appear to be, I am a puppet, Kumo responded. Chojuro exhaled, visibly relieved. Mei smiled gently. So the brave Chojuro was intimidated by a puppet?
I wasn't intimidated, Mei-sama.
I just couldn't detect any chakra, he murmured, slightly embarrassed. Mei playfully ruffled his hair. That's all right. With time, your skills will grow. She then returned her attention to Kumo. If you're a puppet, where is the puppeteer? The puppet hissed softly, not from its mouth, but from within. Its chest compartment opened to reveal a hollow space, and from it emerged a child with ebony hair, green pupilless eyes, and an expressionless face. Around 8 years old in appearance, the child wore a black half-face mask and matching glasses pushed up into her hair. She was dressed in dark green onbu-style pants, a fitted black long-sleeved shirt, and a deep green hooded jacket. With practiced ease, the child sealed the puppet into a wrist tattoo and stood before them silently. So you are Kumo? Chojuro asked, clearly more comfortable now. Kumo is an alias. I will share my true identity on the condition of confidentiality. They all nodded in agreement. My name is Naruko Uzumaki Namikaze. Ao narrowed his eyes. I've never heard of a namikaze with black hair. I'm using a transformation technique, Naruko replied calmly. If that's the case, I should be able to see through it. My transformations are reinforced. Ao scoffed. Impossible. There's no such thing as a reinforced transformation. Naruko said nothing. Her body shifted, transforming seamlessly into a perfect replica of Chojuro. Ao activated his Byakugan and paled. It really is solid. Naruko returned to her original form and looked directly at Mei. So, would you still like my assistance? Absolutely, Mei exclaimed. But how will a solid transformation help us in this conflict? I have no plans to rely on transformations to resolve this. My primary tools are puppetry and seals. You mean that small puppet Ao was raving about? Mei asked, ignoring Ao's indignant muttering. Possibly. But before making promises, I need to know more about how we plan to resolve the situation. Mei nodded and gestured for Naruko to take a seat at the table. She laced her fingers beneath her chin. Our current Mizukage was once a good leader. Over time, something changed. He began targeting individuals with unique abilities, branding them as unworthy. He is also a Jinchuriki, host to the three-tailed beast. He's highly skilled in water-style techniques, taijutsu, and wields a hook staff expertly. In truth, we're unsure how to defeat him. Naruko's lips curled in a subtle smile. When you say he's a Jinchuriki, does he utilize the beast's chakra? Yes, when pushed to extremes, he will. Do you have any ideas? Naruko nodded. I've been told I have a natural talent for fuinjutsu, sealing techniques. That's an understatement, Ao muttered under his breath. Let's talk about that later, Naruko continued. With sealing, nearly anything is possible. I can't use Ko, the puppet that subdued the enemy platoon, on the Mizukage because the beast's chakra would overpower it. Instead, I will build a puppet that can extract or suppress that chakra. Once contained, he can be neutralized. That's one strategy. Is that even doable? Chojuro asked skeptically. Then he sighed, realizing, of course it is. Naruko smiled gently. Exactly. But I'll need 3 days to prepare and the strongest tree you can find. And the second option? Mei asked. Option 2 involves infusing my chakra directly into the opponent. It's quite concentrated and may disrupt their flow. I can demonstrate. With care, Naruko enveloped Chojuro in her green chakra and lifted him gently into the air, guiding him around the room as though he were flying. She then released him softly to the floor, turned to a nearby chair, and fired a chakra thread from her thumb. The thread connected and, moments later, the chair began to dissolve into harmless paste. She turned to face them again. While it works well in most cases, I can't confirm its effectiveness on a Jinchuriki. So I'd advise pursuing the first plan. I agree, Mei said firmly. If that fails, we try the second. Ideally, our target would be weakened by then. Naruko clapped her hands together. Great. Now, let's formalize this with an agreement. Mei gestured to Ao, who brought parchment and a pen. First, Naruko began, when we win this conflict, I want the credit given to Kumo, not Naruko. My identity must remain confidential until I officially reach the rank of Jonin. Ao wrote it down. Wait, you're not a ninja yet? Chojuro asked, surprised. Naruko shook her head. I'll be taking the Jinan exam in 8 months. But I've been evaluated to already operate at Jonin level. And your father is unaware of your activities? Mei inquired gently. Naruko shook her head again. I left a clone in my place. It will maintain appearances while I'm gone. She continued, second, I want this location to act as a safe contact point. If any of my operatives are unable to reach me in Konoha, you may send a coded message through this channel. They nodded. Third, I'd like Kumo entered in the bingo book, not as a criminal, but as an elite specialist for hire. A bounty hunter of sorts, able to take on high-stakes missions. Kiri would be the primary source of my contact information. Mei tapped her chin. Acceptable. But why the bingo book? And why missions that high in risk? Naruko answered with a small grin. Apparently, I inherited my mother's love for challenge. High-risk missions are how I intend to grow. Mei leaned forward, intrigued. Any other terms? 3 days later. We now find our young heroine, Naruko, seated calmly in a tranquil clearing. Her legs were crossed in meditation while Lady Mei Terumi stood composed before her. Behind Mei, Ao paced restlessly, while Kujuro waited patiently at her side. Ao-san, please stop pacing or I'll have to ask you to sit down, Mei said in a polite but firm tone, before turning to Naruko. What are we waiting for exactly, Naruko-san? I sent the Mizukage a message, Naruko replied with a serene tone. Just waiting for his response. As if on cue, a distant boom echoed through the air as a cloud of glittering light burst near the cage tower. A loud, earth-shaking rumble followed. "Well. Seems he got the message," Naruko commented with a small smile. "What exactly did you do?" Kujiro asked nervously. "The security in his tower isn't great," Naruko explained matter-of-factly. "Not everyone seems to be a fan of his leadership. I carefully placed seal tags throughout the area. When he sat down, the tags activated and released a light show. On his chair, he should have found a message with directions to find me." "That was bold," Mei said, raising an eyebrow. "I couldn't think of a better way to get his attention," Naruko replied with a shrug. "And it worked," a deep voice echoed from behind them. Ao and Kujiro instantly moved in front of Mei, alert and ready. Mei turned her eyes toward the approaching figure, and Naruko calmly stood up, activating her scrolls to release two of her inventions, Raps, a flexible puppet cloaked in bandages, and Chisensha, a larger, tank-like puppet affectionately called Cho. "I'm not here for any of you," the man said sharply, pointing at Naruko. "I came for her." "Mei-sama, Ao-san, Kujiro-san. Please, don't interfere," Naruko said gently. When they looked hesitant, she smiled. "Trust me." Ao clearly wanted to object, but a single look from Mei convinced him otherwise. They stepped aside, keeping a respectful distance. "Shall we begin, Mizukage-sama?" Naruko asked, stepping forward. "You're far too young to face me seriously," the older man said, visibly unimpressed. Naruko's expression remained calm. "Underestimating me might not be wise." The man responded by drawing his weapon, a long staff, and charged forward. Naruko quickly signaled Raps to intercept. The clash that followed would be remembered as one of the most memorable confrontations in the history of the village. Yagura, the Mizukage, swung fiercely, but Raps skillfully dodged and countered. Cho joined the battle, barreling toward Yagura and forcing him back with surprising strength. The puppet launched itself in the air and landed smoothly as the ground cracked beneath the weight of its scythe. Naruko stayed calm, analyzing her opponent's every move. When Yagura began forming hand seals, Raps hurled its weapon toward him. Forced to defend, Yagura deflected it, only for the weapon to return to Raps, tethered by chakra strings. Realizing Naruko was the true threat, Yagura attempted a swift and powerful attack, aiming a high-speed strike directly at her. His foot hit its mark, but instead of Naruko, the target vanished in a puff of smoke. "A clone?" he gasped. Before he could fully react, the real Naruko had Raps quietly sneak up and entangle him in high-durability chakra-infused bandages. As he struggled, Cho lumbered over, grabbed him carefully, and began extracting the excess chakra using a secure absorption method built into its mechanism. It wasn't painful, more like a slow siphoning that left the Mizukage drained and exhausted. When the technique ended, Cho compressed the chakra and released a contained blast, forcing the Mizukage into unconsciousness. Naruko stepped out from her cover, gently instructing her puppets to place the now subdued leader carefully onto the ground. The battle was over. The oppressive era of conflict in the village had reached its conclusion. Naruko allowed herself a quiet moment of relief. The stress she had been holding in washed over her, and a small shiver ran through her. That's when warm arms wrapped around her. She looked up to see Mei, smiling kindly. Naruko relaxed into the embrace while, nearby, Kujiro smiled and Ao looked uncharacteristically joyful. It felt peaceful. It felt safe. The next day. It was announced across the land that the conflict had ended. It was revealed that the former Mizukage had been under the influence of a powerful genjutsu, which Naruko had carefully dispelled using her unique chakra. Though deeply regretful of the past, the former Mizukage vowed to assist in protecting the village from the shadows as a quiet guardian under Naruko's guidance. The people knew only of the masked individual who helped bring peace. They called her Kumo, a mysterious figure clad in green with pupilless emerald eyes, always wearing a black half mask and a green hooded jacket. Her true age was a mystery. As for the former Mizukage, he now served as a quiet protector of the village under Naruko's leadership, dedicated to atoning for his past under her firm but compassionate guidance. We find Naruko once again at the place where her journey in the land of water had begun. "Thank you, Naruko-san, for all that you've done for Kirigakure," Mei said with a deep bow, echoed by the others. "You have our everlasting gratitude." Yagura stepped forward and bowed low. "I owe you my life, Naruko-sama." Naruko blushed modestly and scratched the back of her head. "It was nothing. Just remember the agreement." "We will honor it," Ao said earnestly. Then he blinked. "Wait, what about the shinobi you captured?" They're safe, Naruko replied calmly. Just tied up at your old base. As she prepared to leave, Kujuro asked, where will you go now? Naruko thought for a moment. I still have about 5 months left on this mission. I'm heading to the nearest village or city to begin building my own intelligence network. Good luck, Naruko-san, Ao said, bowing again. And know that you are always welcome in Kirigakure, Mei added warmly. Naruko nodded and waved, her puppet mount disappearing into the forest trail toward a new destination. As she checked her map, her next stop came into view, Kaizen Village. A new chapter was about to begin. Dear YouTube family. This transmission ends here, for now. If you found value in this upload, initiate protocol, like, share, and subscribe. Your support powers the signal and keeps the upgrades coming. Until next upload, stay sharp, stay synced. Thank you. 6 Path Weeb, logging off.